I have a passion hobby, as you can tell, of collecting bee smokers. What got me into collecting these smokers was, for years when I was going out and giving talks, I always gave a talk, I hate to say this, on the negative side of beekeeping. That is, I talk about bee diseases and parasites. And came to a point where, you know, there are good sides of beekeeping. Between 1850 and 1875, that was considered the golden years of beekeeping. That's where we got our bee space. That's when the time that we had our extractors was invented, and also the invention of the movable frames, wax melters, and making foundation. The last thing that was invented was the bee smoker, and that was done around 1875 by a guy by the name of Quinby. This is the Quinby Smoker in the late 1800s. Now then, you look at it and say, well, that's a lot different than the ones that we have today. That is very true. In order to use this smoker in the correct position, you have to turn it upside down. So the bellows sits the way that we like to see it today. And when you puff it, it blows smoke down over the beehive. As you can tell, when you use the smoker in this position and blow the smoke over the beehives, every now and then you may get some hot ashes that will fall down into the hive. And they also term this the hot blast system. Now, the hot blast system in today's time, it means that the air is blown through the bottom of the smoker and it goes up through the fire and out to the top. That is the hot blast system. Now, one of the side stories about Mr. Quinby, he was very old in age when he invented the smoker. I think he was around 64, 65 years of age. And he invented it. The first year, history tells us that he was very secret about it. He did not let his invention go out. He kept it to himself. Several years later, his invention went public. And he did not get a patent. And one of the reasons he did not get a patent on it was he was in bad health, and a couple of years after he invented the smoker, he passed away. But he did not get it. Then we had a gentleman by the name of Bingham went and saw the great similarities, the usefulness, and the way to handle smoke so he can control a large number of beehives. So he went and got a patent on a smoker. Excuse me, this is the Bingham Smoker. As you can see, it's very similar to the Quinby, but Mr. Bingham went and got a patent on it. And by seeking a patent on his smoker, the beekeeping community in the 1800s started chastising him about him getting a patent on the smoker. The reason was, they're saying, you took an invention from somebody else, Moses Quinby, you're getting a patent on it, and you're trying to make money or profit from his design. So Mr. Bingham had to come up with something different. Now this is the Bingham Smoker, probably around 1882 era. It's very similar to the Moses Quinby, but it's quite different. And in order to use this, you have to use it in this position right here. This is the correct position using the Bingham Smoker. Now then, you also can tell, since he's been getting criticized by the beekeeping community, he has to come up with something different. He made it bigger, which would hold more fuel, and that way he could say his smoker was so much superior. The other thing is, you would notice a wooden strip down the face of the bellows. On that wooden strip, the fire chamber is wired to the wooden strip. This is supposed to be so much superior to screws and nails. Now we know that is not totally true, but this was his way of trying to convince the public in the 1880s that his invention is so much better, superior than Mr. Quinby's. So this is a Bingham Smoker around 1880. Now we're going to talk about the Clarke Cold Blast Smoker. This is around 1879 when the Clarke Cold Blast was invented. It's a very different smoker. It is called, reason it was called the Cold Blast Smoker is the bellows blows the air above the fire chamber. The fire chamber's down here, and the nozzle that blows in is right here, so it's above the fire chamber, and that's how we get the name the Clarke Cold Blast. This particular smoker was considered very, very popular in the early or 1900s and late 1800s. In the old literature, it stated that this smoker was so good it can blow a cool smoke for 20 and 30 feet. Now you sit and ask yourself, to blow a smoke 20 or 30 feet, you're going to have pretty good wind behind you, number one. And number two, if this smoker was so popular and 20,000 was made around 1880 to 1910, how come we don't have them today? Think about that. Well, the reason is, by being a cold blast smoker where the air is blown above the fire chamber, when you set it down on the ground and go and close your hive up and go to the next hive, it will go out, because it had no air to draw into the fire chamber where the fire is. It was above it. And so it went out very quickly, and you had to relight it almost every time you went from one beehive to another. It is also called a breech-loading smoker. That's because you load it from the bottom. It has two bottoms. One end swings out. I will not swing it out because it may hurt it. And you stuff the burlap or bark inside, light it and swing it up, and then you go and use the smoker. And also, you have to use it in this position. This is the Clarke Cold Blast of 1879. This is a smoker I got when I was over in Europe several years ago. We started getting into different types of smokers. Once the story said, if you had 200 beekeepers in this room and you ask all 200 of them how to keep bees, you'll get 201 answers, because you get 200 different answers, and one of them's going to change your mind before the talk's over with. So that's the reason we got all these different types of smokers. Everybody has their way of doing it, and their ways, of course, is always better. But this particular smoker, I'm going to give you a nice little talk about it. My wife went with me some years ago to a bee convention, and I set up my display. And after I gave the talk, it was all over with, I had this smoker in my hand, and a young hobby beekeeper, he probably had one hive of bees, very young kid, about 16 years of age, came up and started talking about this smoker. And I was feeling real good one day, and I said, well, this smoker is in the 21st century. It has a turbocharger. It blows all that air in, cuts it down, go inside, you have a fan, you cut the fan on, and you dial the speed. And it was really high tech. And I went on and got through. It was over with. The boy walked away. My wife came up and said, you just BS your way to that young kid. I said, I was just joking with him. And my wife said, well, he took you very serious. And I said, well, you could say it's a turbocharger, because turbocharger, when you take something and can get it down to a smaller space. So this is taking air out and force it into a space smaller and up and through. So this is a European smoker I picked up in the European countries several years ago. This is a smoker I picked up when I was in Australia. some years ago. It's very different than the ones that we have today or our style. One of the things you can see that the fire shield is what we call backwards. They do it backwards. Ours goes this way. This is the other direction. And this particular one, the bellows is round. And you can work it either way, sideways or top or the other way. To me, it was very interesting and very unusual. So this is a smoker I picked up in Australia. These are aerosol cans, smoke, that was on the market some years ago.
I see a Man Lake on there.
Man Lake made some, they quit making them. This was made by Day earlier. This is a chemical spray that I got in Europe. These are German pipe smokers. And I have a cigar that's got a bee emblem. Some people in the old days smoked cigars and blew smoke over. These are sound, send out sound waves, and it's supposed to keep the bee from getting on you. You put it in your shirt. They really do not work. This is a smoker that was made in Mexico for me some years ago. Luminous Smoker at the very top. Wind up our Clarke smoker, the black one at the very top. It winds up like a little toy years ago.
What does it do? How does it work?
It has a spring in the bottom of it. You wind it up and you mash it and it blows smoke out. It's very, very heavy. The handle's real small, and when you hold it, it wants to fall forward. So it worked good for a very short period of time till you get tired of holding it. It's hard to hold and work bees at the same time. Guatemala with the square smoker up top.
Was that manufactured or is that homemade?
Well, a lot of things in Guatemala was homemade, not necessarily manufactured. These are some old Bingham Smokers at the top. Cornwall Smoker, Kirschmer Smoker.
Which one's the Cornwall?
Cornwall Smoker is this one. The thing that you need to notice, the top is hinged to the fire chamber. Cornwall.
Okay. That's another
Kirschmer, the top is hinged to the bellows, not the fire chamber.
Uh-huh.
This is another one I haven't done research on it yet. It's different. The top pulls straight up. It has no hinge on it.
And
these what they used to call the Old Gooseneck Smokers. They have kind of a gooseneck to them. The purpose of it was it's supposed to be environmental sound back in those days. If a lot of the smoky material, such as burlap, did not burn real good, it would go up and hit the top and fall back down. It would recycle that burnt stuff. How effective it was, I do not know, but that was the purpose of these smokers.
what about the one that has the cloth bellows?
This one is handmade around 1940s era during the war. I'm not real good on my cans, but this is like a peach can they made, and they took another peach can and made a funnel out of it and made a bellows and used burlap. Time was very hard around 1940, 45 because of the war and depression, and there's a lot of homemade smokers was made. And these are more modern smokers. The unusual thing about this smoker, you open it from the bottom, not from the top. The top does not open.
Huh.
At the very top is the copper smoker from Day-Dant. The next one is a copper smoker from the European countries. And this is a smoker made in Mexico, A lot of the smokers were square, and they used bright colors. It could be yellow, orange, red. They used very bright colors.
Oh, I want one.
And it was more square.
They still make those?
They still make them, yes, sir.
I gotta find some of those.
And this is another unusual, well, it's not really unusual smoker.
It's not.
It's that you have it, you take it off the bottom. See if I can do it. I haven't done it in a while. You turn it and the bottom comes out and you light it and you put it back in. The top does not come off.
That makes it kind of difficult to remove it when it's hot.
It's very, very hard. You would notice that all the smokers, they have a break between the bellows pumping air to the fire chamber. Now, it may not be
It's pointed out
right there. There's a break. It does not go all the way through.
Why is that?
They learn from the very beginning, if you connect this all the way inside, when you puff it to blow the smoke out, and when you release it, it would have to draw the air from the top, and it would blow fire into the bellows, and it would catch a fire. So that's the reason you have an air brake to some degree. Whether it's a quarter of an inch, eighth of an inch, or more, depending upon the manufacturer. But all bellows do not officially attach the air chamber to the smoker.
I noticed this pipe that pushes is from the bellows to the fire chamber, and on this one it's from the fire chamber towards the bellows. So apparently it doesn't matter which way that...
It doesn't matter which way, as long as you have about an eighth of an inch where it doesn't draw, when you release the bellows, it doesn't bring stuff from the fire chamber over to the bellows. That's the purpose of the brake right there. Australia, these are other types of U.S. smokers. Now we're going back to Old Smokers. This is a very small smoker. AI Root came out with around 1910. It is a very good smoker because the bellows is much larger and put air into a smaller fire chamber, where you can see these bellows are basically the same, but this fire chamber is a little bit bigger than this one. This was very small, and it was very powerful. It really blew the smoke out. These was made for a few years, and they quit making them. And this is a Funkstein Perfect Smoker. It has what I call a fireplace bellows, and it was fair but not great.
It also had the interlocking mechanism similar to...
It has an interlocking mechanism. You break it loose here, and you put your fire or your burlap or wood chips in here and lock it. It blows it through. It's still a hot blast system because it blows air through the fire chamber and it comes out the other end. It also had another purpose. Today, people will not approve of it. On the back of this smoker, it has instructions, and one of the instructions was you can use the smoker to work bees when you need to. It was very clumsy because you hold it in one hand and you have to work the fire or the bellows with the second hand, and really it was two people had to operate the beehives. One worked the beehives, the other person would work the bellows or the smoker and the bellows. But on there it had instructions where in the wintertime you could take this same smoker, break it apart, and take a piece of burlap 8 by 16 inches and put about 4 tablespoons of sulfur in it, roll it up, light it, and put it inside. And then when you go hunting, you stick the nozzle down into a rodent's hole, give 2 or 3 puffs of smoke, pull it out, and you can shoot the animal at will. The smoke will cause the eyes to burn of the animal, and the sulfur will make him gag, and the animal will come out and sit on its hind legs and face the wind, and you can shoot it at will. Now, that's what it says on it. Wildlife people will not approve of that today. That's what was done in the late 1800s. And the rest of them is all different designs.
I see a Woodman Smoker. I've never heard of that company.
Woodman made quite a few smokers. People don't realize this is a root smoker. After cleaning it up, you could tell that it was copper.
Oh, wow.
So when Day came out with a copper smoker around 1975, it was not the first time copper has been used. Copper smoker was used back in the early 1900s, but they don't last long. They're a good smoker, but after a period of time, the copper is worth more than the smoker. So people use the copper more. It's more valuable than the smoker itself.
But does the smoker survive as a smoker long? It's not going to rust like...
It won't rust. It's a good, but you know, like today, copper is very expensive.
Yeah, but it's a status symbol. I'd like to have a copper smoker.
Well, I won't argue that point.
Now I see some contraptions that look more like jet engine boosters for rockets than smokers.
Oh, they're all a bunch of different kind.
What about the signal rocket looking smoker up there? The sideways one right there.
Oh, that is a pump smoker. It's what we call a bellowless smoker. It has, you pull it out and you push it in. You work it like this real heavily and fast, and it blows smoke. And instead of calming bees down, it encourages bees to attack you, because your hands is moving real fast over the beehive, and you're making a lot of racket, and it was not very effective.
What era?
This will be in the late 1800s. Is an era that we're talking about.
That looks like another Quinby right there.
These are Quinbys. I haven't worked on them. They're a little bit different, but I won't go into it. And if you could take a close look, I'll try to move this little one. You can see a bamboo stick. That's the way our primitive beekeepers work and smoke their bees. There's a hole punched all the way through. You light one end of the stick and hold it over the beehive and fan the smoke with your hand, and it smoked it very well. And if it's about to go out, you just wave it real fast, and it will draw air from the other end. But that's a bamboo stick type smoker. That's the way they used to smoke bees in the 1600s. Some years ago, when I was in Mexico, it was around 1979, I went and saw a Hispanic beekeeper, and that was his smoker right there. And it was very good. And I went and gave him a new smoker for that so I can put it in my collection. He got a good deal, and I think I got a good deal.
Oh, you got a good deal. Story's everything.
That was a smoker made from a foreign country. I can't remember offhand what it was. It has a spring inside the black tube. You push it down, and it turns the fan and draws air, and it's supposed to blow smoke out. It's not real effective, because you spend all your time working your thumb up and down trying to get to blow that smoke out. It's good for a collection, but not that efficient to work in a bee yard. These are your Bingham Smokers, Clarke Cold Blast, Quinby Smokers. This is a simplicity cold blast smoker around 1883. this particular smoker was not manufactured. The design was placed in a bee magazine to where you make it for yourself. The way the story goes, when your kids go to school and they go into band and blow a horn or a trumpet after they graduate, what do you do with that horn? You take the end of the horn, cut it off, put the mouthpiece inside, which give it a cold blast effect, and you have a gate or a sliding gate around the fire chamber where you can light it and just the air going in. So that's what you do with a horn back in the later 1800s. This smoker, the design was printed and you make your own. And this is another homemade smoker. We go on down.
Could you show us that homemade smoker? It doesn't, the angle's weird on it.
This is a homemade smoker. It's very heavy.
Milk carton or something?
Well, and that's not a milk carton. It's galvanized. It's very heavy, and it has a square takeover where the designers thinks it fit inside the bottom part of a beehive real good. You can blow your smoke in. But this is a homemade smoker. Now we'll go back to the German Clarke smoker. You can see it here. That's the way it looks at this angle.
Can you pull the key out, or is it stuck
No,
in
it
there?
stays, and you can hear it blowing air through, and it blows smoke out. This smoker has several disadvantages. Of it have a small handle. This much down is spring where you wind it up, and only the fire chamber is this size. So it's pretty heavy, and you have a tendency it wants to drop down with you when you use it. So that is a Clarke smoker, is a German Clarke smoker. I'm gonna set it down. The next story I'm gonna tell you about, you see this wax of a Viking. I made that some years ago. I was invited to give a talk to Ireland, and so the person that invited me to give a talk, I was going to make him a present. And so Bryan High School, where my kids went to school, they are the Vikings. So I went and made a Viking headpiece made out of pure beeswax. I gave it to the gentleman, and this was the Ireland's national conference that they had, and he went to enter into the wax contest, and this particular one won second place, and there was a big argument over the second place, and I asked him what the problem was. He said, well, we give you a big trophy, and you only keep it for 1 year, and then whoever wins next year, they get the trophy. So the trophy is not given for you to keep indefinite. It keeps long as your title is that you got second place, and the next person gets it, they get it. And since you're from the United States, we don't want the trophy to leave our country. And I laughed. I said, well, you give me a certificate saying I won second place. That makes me very happy. And you, since I gave it to you, you keep the trophy and keep it for 1 year, and then it goes to the next person who wins second place in the contest. Now this is a smoker from New Zealand. It also loads from the bottom. It's a little unusual, and I've never used it, but one of the disadvantages of this type of smoker, when you set it down, they want to fall over because it has a handle on the end. But it's a pretty good smoker. Incidentally, I never light my smokers. I put them up and leave them. And this is another smoker from Australia. You can see that the bellows, the fire protective shield is backwards the way we know of today. And the smoker down here This smoker is very, very heavy. It was made in Africa, and my story was it is so heavy that I think it would stop a Zulu spear, but it's very, very thick and extremely heavy. This particular smoker is a copper smoker. It was made, got it in Holland. If you look real closely, it is not perfectly round. Every half of an inch it makes an indentation. So it's turned in angles all the way around. So that's what's unusual about it, but it's a copper smoker from Holland. And homemade smoker, I call it Bingham style. This is a Clarke cold blast smoker. Now, you may see some different cold blast smokers, but to me they're very different. For example, this bellows is triangle in shape and it has a wire on top. That's an older model. This is a new version. It has a regular square bellows and it was made after this one. They're trying to update it, which it really not work. You'll also notice that some of these smokers, Clarke Cold Blast has one ridge groove and two ridge grooves. But that also gives me the date and history, is the ridge grooves. Now this is a Higgins Ville smoker. It is like a Woodman, except it has a metal plate right here. And it's a little bit built, the fire chamber is a little bit stouter, but that is a Higginsville smoker. This particular one is what we call a stovepipe smoker around 1886. It looks like a miniature stovepipe, but it has one disadvantage to it. The air intake is another piece of wood. And when you set it down, it wants to fall. If you set it down real hard, dirt will go inside the air intake and it will go out. So that was the reason it was not, we have it now. It was just a short time in history that this smoker was made. This is a Smudge Pot Smoker around 1850. It is not a bellow smoker. It's just a container with a top on it. Has a wooden stick with the handle on it, wire handle. When the fire gets about to go out, you grab by the handle and you whirl it around. It will draw air, and therefore it would bring out more smoke. People thought they had to have a top like this with holes in it. They felt like if you take the top off, the bees would dive in and try to put the fire out. That was an old myth back in the early 1800s, but this is a Smudge Pot Smoker of 1850s. Now, if we stop a minute, we'll look at the ones on the next two shelves.
All right.
This is a U.S. smoker. The only difference is, instead of lighting it, you put your fuel inside, and it has where you can stick it in a cigarette lighter, and it has a glow charge in the bottom. It lights it up, unplug it, and then you can go on and use the smoker as well. This is another old Bingham Smoker. It's probably around 1905. This smoker, I haven't yet to determine the age of it, but it's an old European German smoker. It's probably in the late 1800s. U.S. smoker. And at the very bottom, you can see the two square smokers. These are from Mexico, green, with a narrow point for the smoke to come out. And over here is the bright orange with a bigger, thicker nozzle on the top for smoke to come out. And then, of course, we have our pipe smokers from Germany. And these are manufactured smokers that was made about 5 years ago, and I think the company may have went out of business. You put some type of propane tank underneath, and you smoke your bees that way, but it's kind of clumsy, and it will not stay. It was not that efficient, in my personal opinion. This Brazilian smoker is still manufactured, still going on at the present time. It is a very big smoker. It takes 2 handles to work it, one to hold it, one to work the bellows. And once you fill it up, it would go a good half a day or possibly all day long. So this is a Brazilian smoker, and it is a real good smoker, but it's extremely heavy, and it takes 2 hands to operate it.
I presume it'd be one dedicated guy all day long.
One dedicated guy.
Oh yeah, and it probably has to trade off throughout the day. He does it all day. Okay.
See what I'm talking about?
So if you want to, we're talking about how to make a smoker for Africa. Okay, so this is the World War II smoker. It's soup can, peach can, something like that.
It is a can.
It's just a can. It's been welded though. It's been soldered. The bellows are just some flat wood with a hole in the back and a flap of leather as the check valve.
Or you can use burlap.